Jimena presents Voices of Jewish Refugees from the Middle East and North Africa. Join us for an enlightening event that explores the personal experiences of Mizrahi and Sephardi Jews who fled their homes from the Middle East and North Africa. In sharing these stories, we hope to provide a launch point for conversations on contemporary anti-Semitism and cultural identity. The program will begin momentarily.
Hey everyone, welcome to the third session in our series, Voices of Jewish Refugees. My name is Matthew Nuriel. I'm the Director of Community Engagement at Jimena, Jews Indigenous to the Middle East and North Africa. We organized this series because we realized that a critical voice that's missing from public discourse in today's climate is that of the experiences of former Jewish refugees from the Middle East and North Africa. We believe that you cannot understand the current conflict and crisis in the Middle East if you don't listen to the voices of Jews and other religious and ethnic minorities from the region. Today, we're honored to welcome my friend, Jewish Iranian author, political activist, and translator, Elham Yaghoubian, who has become a very powerful voice within both the worlds of Jewish and Iranian advocacy, fighting for awareness and sharing her lived experience as a Jewish woman and activist living under the Islamic Republic regime. Hello, Elham.
Hi, Matthew. Thank you so much for inviting me to your amazing program. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. We're really excited to hear all about your story and your experiences. So let's just dive right back into it. Tell us, first of all, tell our audience a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from in Iran, and when you left.
I'm wearing several hats, but I can say that I'm author, translator, and political activist, also a founder of Iran-Israel Alliance of Nations. I was born and raised in Tehran, Iran, and left in 2000. In fact, in 1999, late 1999, and arrived in LA in 2000.
Incredible. We need to delve into this story because it's usually when we hear about Iranian Jews, for the most part, like my families and so many families left like right after the revolution in the 80s and maybe the early 90s. So it's a treat for us to get to hear your experiences because you have memories of being there a little bit later than that. Can you tell us what it was like for what life was like for Jews living under the Islamic Republic regime?
So I was born before revolution, but when it happened, I was very young. I was a child. So my memory from the past is only from what I heard from different people, from my family or friends, or I read in the books. My experience, my personal experience, I can confidently say I never hide my identity in Iran. I was proud Jew. However, I experienced anti-Semitism in different levels and different areas. Like I remember when during my school time, one of our principals would refuse anything handled by the Jewish students, saying that it's impure, or Another occasion, a few years later, one of our principals in high school expressed her desire to see the Jewish students in Khane Fasad. I don't know how should I translate it, but the closest would be in the corruption houses. So, or like the Ministry of Education, they never chose and select high qualified teachers to send to our schools. One of the years I remember we didn't have a teacher for half a year for major courses in Iran. So the experiences we had was, very different in different areas. But in general, like anti-Semitism is something that you can find it in the Constitution of Islamic Republic of Iran. Based on the Constitution, Jews considered as second or even fourth citizen. Why I say second citizen? Because any non-Muslim man compared to Muslim men values half. And since women, Muslim women value half, so just calculate it. Female, a non-Muslim female would consider as one-fourth value. We always in our own country, we felt, I as a Jewish woman, I felt as a second class citizen the fourth class citizen in my own country. On the other hand, what we experience in TV shows, in media, in TV series, we experience many anti-Semitism propaganda broadcasting via these, tools. So I hope I could respond to your question.
Yeah. So you're essentially saying that constitutionally within the Islamic Republic regime, the life of non-Muslims and even women is worth half that of Muslims. And if a Muslim woman's, sorry, let me get it straight. So you're saying essentially that a woman, even a Muslim woman's life is worth half that of a Muslim man. Therefore, if you're a non-Muslim woman or just a non-Muslim, your life is worth even less than half that of a Muslim.
And it's only about the recognized minorities, meaning Jews, Christians, and Zoroastrians. Baha'is don't have even any rights. Doesn't matter, not men or women.
Was there any sort of what was the relationship like between other religious minorities and Jews? Or particularly, I'd love to hear about Zoroastrians, Christians, and Baha'is. Like, was there any kind of synergistic relationship between these communities, or was everything kind of just segregated?
It's funny that I grew up in a neighborhood that there were so many Zoroastrians living in that neighborhood, and also many Armenians living that area because it was close to church. So I grew up with them, and we all knew that we are coming from different backgrounds. We've never had any problem. In fact, maybe unknowingly we were more connected. Although I have to say we had Muslim friends as well. We grew up with them. I personally never ever experienced anything negative with my Muslim friends. Some of them were so close to me, like my sisters and brothers. But again, it's my experience. I've heard stories from others, from other friends and families, including my husband, who is, my generation, but growing up in another city. His experience was totally different. What he experienced is much closer to what my parents' generation experienced. But in Tehran and my environment, personally, I never experienced anti-Semitism among my own friends.
That's interesting. So essentially, it sounds like Tehran, being like the major metropolis of Iran, was a lot more forward-thinking and modern, perhaps, whereas some of the smaller cities we're not as open-minded.
It is, but again, even in Tehran, there were some incidents. Again, I want to repeat it. I didn't have experience, but I know friends and people who were hiding their identities. They even asked me not to tell, other friends that they are Jewish. They wanted to hide their own identities. So most probably they had different experiences that didn't want to. They didn't feel safe to express who they are.
It's such an interesting history, and I love hearing that there was sort of an unspoken camaraderie between other religious minorities and Jews. This leads me to a question that I really am eager to hear your answer for. A lot of anti-Zionist activists like to point to the fact that in Iran, they have the largest population of Jews in the Middle East and North Africa outside of Israel, but they usually leave out the fact that the number is only maybe 8,000 to 10,000 people. What do you want to say to people who try to weaponize this fact? Because
I want to ask them to read the history. The roots of Iranian Jews goes back to 2,700 years ago, and Jews in Iran had ups and downs. Iranian Jews are part of Iran history. After Israel, Iran has the most number of Jewish holy places. So, but despite all ups and downs, Iranian Jews never wanted to leave Iran, never wanted to leave their homeland. But when revolution happened, Islamic extremists got to the power. Based on some documents, that the population of Jews were 80,000, or in some documents, even 100,000 Jews. Imagine, only after a decade, half of the population left Iran. And later on, even more and more. So when we're comparing, like, let's say 80,000, not even go there for 100,000 Jews. And now about 8,000, what it shows that people, the Jews in Iran, don't feel safe, don't feel comfortable. They are experiencing something that after centuries living there and knowing Iran as their own homeland, they had no choice to leave Iran. So these 8,000 people doesn't prove anything.
Right. A lot of those same activists also like to say that Jews in Iran live so comfortably, they don't want to leave Iran, they refuse to leave Iran, they're anti-Israel, and they ignore the fact that, just like what you were saying, like under the regime, they're legally very restricted in so many ways. What do you think about that?
So I cannot...
This weaponization and tokenization of our people that are remaining in Iran.
So I can say that I cannot talk on behalf of all Jews over there. Like many Jews all around the world, there are Jews who are anti-Israel, against Israel. There are Jews who are working with the government and have financial or other benefits that they are gaining. And some of them even apolitical, and they don't have the connection with their root to have or experience anything. So I cannot again talk on behalf of everyone, but I can say that part of a majority of Jews in Iran are under pressure. They cannot express themselves. Look, just two years ago, I'm not talking about the last 45 years, just two years ago, a number of Iranians, just for the basic rights, they were in the street and they expressed their desire for a basic human rights. And the government killed them, tortured them, raped them, and imprisoned them. So obviously, when you are among the minority, doesn't matter which minority, when you are among the minority, the pressure on you going to be much worse than the majority. So Jews in Iran not only feel pressure and discriminated against as in Iranian for basic human rights, they also are under pressure for their connection to their Jewish identity.
Yeah. And I guess it comes back down to what you're saying before about how constitutionally what the regime thinks or legally treats people that are not Muslim. I mean, I'm sure the ramifications, if they're doing that already to people who are Muslim and are Iranian who are protesting, I can't imagine what the ramifications would be for somebody who is of a religious minority that is recognized as being lesser than constitutionally. Like, that's so insane to me. And so it's almost nefarious that people would use that as some kind of tool to weaponize against us. Thank you for all of this, this information that I feel like it's, as an Iranian Jew myself, it's just not talked about enough. So I'm so happy to hear it coming from somebody aside from myself. When did you get into your activism? Like, when did you get into it, and what prompted you to start being vocal and speaking up?
But when I was my activism started from when my first book was published. And
tell us about your first book. Wait, hold on. We got to hear about your book.
So my first book was published when I was, not published. I wrote my first book when I was 16. And then it took a couple of years to be published. So after it was published, I found a way to get into and get involved with the different groups, intellectual groups, and author and poets, or groups and organizations. And since I was much younger than them, and also they knew that I'm Jewish, I get more attention. They show me more attention. As I mentioned, that you asked about my own experience, like in these areas, not only I didn't feel discriminated against. In the opposite, I felt more support and encouragement from those who were against the government, who were intellectual and knew what was happening. So I got from those groups, that many of them were very known authors and poets, I became more involved with another journalist groups. With that group, we created an underground party calling Marz Porgoar Glorious Frontiers. And our goal was just to promote secular democracy and promote Iranian Persian values versus the regime values. So of course, it was not legal, it was underground. But then after, we shaped this group, the 1999 student uprising happened. As you know, this was the first major uprising after the revolution, which didn't get that much attention because those days we didn't have social media. But still, I know that it got some kind of attention from the medias outside and covered the news. That was my involvement. Then, this group got involved in the role of leadership for the uprising, and because of that, in one of our gatherings, the authority attacked and arrested many of my friends. In that.
So essentially, you were part of a nonviolent resistance group.
Exactly. We were writing. At first, before that, we were writing and trying to spread and write about Persian values, about democracy, what we don't have, what the world has. So again, we didn't have social media that people learn about what's happening outside. So that was a small step to try to get more, to create stronger network among younger generation those days.
So incredible. You were young too. You said you were 16?
No. The time that I got involved, I was in my 20s, so early 20s.
Still very young.
So yeah, and from there we continued whatever we believed in.
Yeah, that sounds. I don't think people fully grasp how much of a risk it is to yourselves and how dangerous it is under the Islamic Republic regime to create a resistance group, like essentially an opposition group to the regime. So it's important that people understand how much courage and strength that takes. I mean, honestly, like barakallah, like it's amazing. And when I see these young people today who are in Iran and fighting for their freedom, at this point, I feel like they feel they have nothing left to lose, which is actually the regime needs to be very concerned about that, because when people don't have anything left to lose, it's game over. So you're a pioneer in that. So I think that's amazing. Do you feel like as an activist, not only as a female activist, but also as a Jewish activist, like how was there any difference between you that you felt from non-Jewish activists?
So, as I mentioned, after they arrested my friends, some of them were released after a few days. And when I talked to them, I realized that they left a blank paper in front of them with my name on top of the page, asking them to write about me and my recent trip to Israel. Wow. So as you know, traveling to Israel was not legal. It was strictly prohibited. And I had a trip to Israel a year before, but not so many people knew about this trip. I was so surprised that even those friends who told me, they didn't know that I was in Israel. So obviously it showed that the government knew about my trip. And after I'd heard about this, I felt insecure and unsafe, because it was almost the same time that the 13 Jews in Iran were arrested for the espionage, and it was the headline of the news those days. So as a Jew, I was thinking definitely they would, when they ask about me, about my trip to Israel, it's not going to be far from reality if they come after me and, arrest me for that. Because of that, I had to start thinking about leaving. And I was so lucky that just a few months earlier, one of our relatives pushed my family to apply for visa to leave Iran. And I have to add, when I was in Israel a year before, many people asked me to stay in Israel or go to United States if I want. But I was so idealist. I wanted to make a change. And I said, I have to go back to Iran. So I didn't have any plan to leave Iran, even the time that my family members applied for visa. But then I felt that I'm not safe anymore. And especially when I saw my family worrying all the time, although they didn't know all the details, I decided to leave. And in less than a month, I left Iran and went to Austria and later on to United States.
Wow. I mean, just so people know, like as Elham mentioned, it's prohibited to go to Israel, and it's actually a punishable offense under the Islamic Republic regime. So I'm presuming you would probably travel to somewhere like Turkey and from there go to Israel.
Yeah, it
right?
was through a second, not Turkey, but through the second country. And yes.
The second country. Yeah. So can you tell us more about your experiences leaving Iran? You told us a bit about the circumstances. I also know for a fact that after you fled Iran, the regime state media started targeting you. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, after I heard about that, when I bought my ticket and got ready, a couple of my close friends knew that I'm leaving. One of them was Muslim friend, uh, whose father had a position at the airport. So through her and through another friend who had some connection, I've heard my name is on the list, on a blacklist, not to be able to leave.
So they would essentially arrest you at the airport if you tried to.
No. That was what I was thinking. That was what I was told. But since I was ready to leave, I said, okay, let's try it. Let's see what's going to happen. And I didn't even tell my parents. I only told them, if something happened, just be careful. Don't worry that there's nothing serious. They might ask me a question. I just tried to make them calm. But luckily, nothing happened. Although I was told that my name is on the list, nothing happened. I left Iran and I came to the United States. From there, I rented a place on Westwood Boulevard with a few other friends who escaped from Iran to continue what we were doing. And just after that, I noticed that I became a target for the news agencies connected to the government. They published my pictures, wrote about my life, many things that no one knew about it. And in fact, the first time that somebody sent me this report from Iran, I was reading it and I was shocked how they got all these details and information. Of course, many false accusations as well, like they connected my trip to Israel as going to Israel to be connected with Mossad. And, I traveled to US as an agent because the Israeli Mossad recruit me for that purpose and that kind of things. But it was lengthy with so many pictures of me and my life. And from there, once a while, they still writing and targeting until 2 years ago that they published, after my interview with one of Israeli medias, they called me they found the Zionist leader of the movement, and they published my pictures. I didn't want to post it online or promote it for many reasons, but then they went to another level, attacking me and labeling me, because they wanted they wanted to diminish the movement to something related to Zionists, to just say that it's led by the Zionists, not from the people of the streets. So anyway, for some, and it's not only the Iran Persian medias. I found Arabic news agencies, Spanish news agencies that obviously are connected to the Islamic regime and posting about me and recording, about my involvement.
It's like, I feel like they do these for a number of reasons. They do these sorts of things, but it's also like such a scare tactic to anybody who dares defy the regime. It's almost like, we're going to smear you. Your family, your immediate family remained in Iran after you left, right?
I came with my brothers, and then my parents joined us a few years later. Many of my friends and my cousins and other family members were called to ask about my involvement. And since then, I tried to just make it distance with them. I don't want to put them in a difficult position or situation. I don't want them to be in danger because of my involvement. But luckily, my first family are here.
I see. So you still have cousins there and stuff.
I have friends, cousins. Some of them left after that. Some, those who were called, they left Iran. But I have friends, both Muslim and Jews, living in Iran.
Wow, it's just a lot to take in. All right, switching gears a little bit. I had the privilege of being in a documentary with you, and I believe you actually brought me on board for the documentary, so thank you for that. It was called Ask an Iranian, and in it, you speak specifically about the wave of support for Israel from within Iran after October 7th, and also your founding of the organization Iran-Israel Alliance of Nations. Can you tell us about this organization, why it's an important mission to amplify, and also when do you think that this support for Israel started? Because in my mind, it started very recently, but you're telling me already back in the 1990s, when you were active as an activist, there was already a sort of support for you, just the fact that you were Jewish. So I'm presuming by extension, there was a level of support for Israel. I love to hear more about this, because most countries in the Middle East and North Africa are very anti-Israel, on a government level, but also the populations, for the majority of them, are. But in Iran, that seems to not be the case. So I'd love to hear your take on that.
Okay. Let me put it this way. The Islamic regime, from the first day they came to, even before they come to the power, anti-Israel was the doctrine. They try to make a big, huge enemy of Israel, just to unite the Arab words and Muslim words. So since they got to power, it was much bigger, and we all grew up. When we were at school, we had to walk over this Israeli flag. We had to slogan against Israel as a small Satan and America as a big Satan. And it's not surprising that you see that there were people who were against Israel because of all these propagandas. But at the same time, when I was among the intellectual groups like authors, poets, artists, and journalists who were more educated, who were more aware of what was happening, they were not, stand by the Islamic regime. And I have to add something else that's very important. One of the most trustworthy media outlets that before all these other satellites and cables came to the picture, one of the most reliable sources for Iranian people who get news was Radio Israel in Persian.
Wow.
So it's funny that I don't know if it's relevant to say it or not, but when I was traveling to Israel, one of my friends who you might know, Puran Farrokhzad, who's author and who was actually, she passed away a few years ago, who was poet and writer and sister of Forough Farrokhzad and Feridun Farrokhzad, one of the known figure of among Iranian people. She asked me to take a couple of books and articles for the Menashe Amir, the speaker of the Voice of Israel, called Israel, the journalist, and the reporter. And when I was coming back, I brought so many of the archives that he recorded with her brother that they didn't have access to it. So what I'm trying to say, that among the Iranian people, there were so many people who trusted Israel even those days. But in 2008, when Facebook became more live, I decided to create a page on Facebook, Iran-Israel Alliance of Nations. As an Iranian Jew, I always had this connection, this love and passion for both countries. And to me, these both countries have so many things in common. And when you read the history, you would see that how much Iranian scientists, Israeli scientists, even were collaborating with each other, and how like Israelis help Iranian people after the earthquake in Iran, and in many aspects, there were so many collaboration, so that not so many people knew about it. My goal was just to create this group and make it possible for both Israelis and Iranians learn more about each other. One time I was in Thailand and with my friends, and it was I met a group of Iranian soccer players, the younger national group. I don't remember what was the name of them, but it was funny when I was talking to them. They said we had a game, and Israelis were cheering for us. I'm talking about 2008, 2009. So it shows that it was not the case that the government wanted to show. Mm-hmm. There was some kind of friendship before, but through my Facebook page, I tried to make more connection. And I received so many emails and letters from Iran showing support. And in 2009, I was in Israel when Neda Agha Sultan was killed. And the so-called Green Movement happened. I don't like to call it Green Movement, but anyway. So
why don't you like to call it the Green Movement?
Because they connected to Mousavi. The demonstration, the movement started with Iranian people for a regime change, not for another reformist or so-called reformist to got to the power. And it's a long story that I don't think it's fit in this interview. I would be happy to talk about it maybe in another program. But I was in Israel, and I contacted a few of my friends that I found through my Facebook, and I asked them, do you want to have a rally to support Iranian people? And I've heard that another person is thinking about it. We collaborate with each other, and we create I believe maybe this is the first pro-Iranian people rally in Israel. That I have the pictures and, from that day. And later on, I decided to create an organization, a non-profit organization, to promote this peace and understanding of each other, which during that time, another couple of groups came to the picture, like Iran loves Israel, Israel loves Iran. I believe they took the idea from here, but anyway, whoever come with this idea was brilliant idea. It worked. People found each other, and I'm so happy to see that nowadays people are standing for each other. Like 2 years ago, Israelis supported Iranian people. I was in contact with a few of Israelis before October 7 who wanted to help. Actually, I was in the middle of this connection to help Iranians who got shot on their eyes, to connect them to some Israeli doctors to help them for more complicated surgeries. Wow. So, and then after October 7 happened, I see from some people in Europe and United States who were not standing on the right side, but Iranian people courageously on their social media supported Israeli people. And that's the best moment of my life, to be honest with you. It was so emotional when I see that, when I got this support and these messages.
It's so powerful to see, and to think that you started this 15 years ago, more already, but it was before sort of social media was what it is today, and things didn't really go viral back then. And I remember very well the Green Movement, or the so-called Green Movement. And just to clarify for people, what Elham was explaining was that the Green Movement started out as a movement for regime change in Iran. And in 2009, there was a presidential election that was rigged, like all of them. And there was a reformist who did not win the election. Again, it was believed that he actually did, but it was rigged. And the people started protesting about the rigged election and that the reformists didn't win the election, and they appropriated the name the Green Movement for that.
I want to add that people came to the street at the beginning for a regime change, and their slogan was exactly against the supreme leader, for removal of supreme leader and for a regime change. But later on, unfortunately, with the help of some medias outside, they highlighted one of the reformists and leading the direction to another way, showing that these demonstration and all these opposition is for one of the candidates, not for the whole change in Iran.
And just so the people who are watching this know, in Iran, it's called a democratic election because technically people vote for who the president is. But what people don't understand is that the president actually doesn't have much say in anything. He's a puppet for the supreme leader. The supreme leader today is Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and he chooses essentially who can even run for president. And then once whoever becomes president is president, they're beholden to whatever whims he has. So
that's why we call it selection, not election.
It's very good. Exactly. It's a selection, not an election. And it's historically always been rigged anyway. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that. And this kind of leads me into my next question, which is we're hearing so much today about a potential military strike on Iran from Israel. We're seeing tensions rise. We are seeing so many videos and images coming out of Iran of people supporting Israel. When Iran had sent all those 200 ballistic missiles to Israel just a few weeks ago, we saw videos coming out of Iran of people in the streets chanting death to Khamenei. We are seeing numerous photographs coming out of graffiti on the streets saying things like, Israel, please make the first hit, we'll take it from there, and asking Israel to do this. And I know that this causes a lot of controversy, I think, within a lot of Iranian activists who are US born and raised, who have a very American sensibility about these sort of things. I think it creates a lot of conflict in their minds because they're supposed to be anti-Israel and they're supposed to be pro-Iran, but you can't be anti-Israel and pro-Iran when the people of Iran, you can't claim to speak for the people of Iran when it seems like the majority of the people of Iran are not anti-Israel. And it seems like this could possibly be a way out of the regime. What do you think is the general feeling amongst Iranians within Iran about the possibility of a direct hit from Israel?
This is a very complicated situation. Like, for example, I myself as an Iranian activist, although the Islamic regime tried to show it on their pieces published about me that I'm pro-war, I'm trying to convince and lobby against, Islamic regime by military attack. I've always been against any kind of military attack. And but the situation is different right now. I myself am hoping if there is any attack, it would be on sites that doesn't hurt Iranian, I'm sorry? Not just Iranian civilians, not anything, any infrastructure that affect on prosperity of Iranian people. So And I believe that Israel has the same in their mind from what they say and what they act. I have to tell you, I, as a person outside, am more concerned that many of these Iranians inside Iran, and I can see where it comes from. Many of them feel when our own governments kill us, rape us, imprison us, torture us, only because we are outside asking for basic things for normal life. What we have to lose? Whatever we have doesn't help us. Even during Obama, when they said, and during Biden, they send billions of dollars to Iran. You think anything happened to the Iranian people? This money went to terrorist groups and organizations, killing more people and, threatening and terrorizing all the world. So people are much smarter than before. And no, it doesn't mean that they want any foreign countries attack them, but they feel maybe this is the only solution for them to get rid of this government. And at least this is how I can see it and how I feel from what I hear from people in Iran.
Yeah. It's really sad. I think that probably there was a period of time when maybe the people of Iran thought that the U.S. would help. And I'm sure once the JCPOA happened with the Obama administration and all of the appeasement and the continuation and enhancement of that appeasement under the Biden administration must have been very, not only disappointing, but hurtful for the people of Iran. So yeah, on that note, let's try and leave on a more uplifting note. What are your hopes and dreams for the future of Iran and Israel?
I think it's not only dream anymore. It was dream. The time I was talking about alliance between these two nations, many people think that I'm idealist. I'm naive. It's not gonna happen. And though many people even laugh at me, but I don't see it as a dream anymore. I see it's getting closer and closer to reality. But I hope it happens sooner than later. I see that many people are talking about Cyprus,
The Cyrus Accords.
Cyrus Accords, but I don't think we need Cyrus Accords. Iran and Israel had friendship, have relationship with each other from the past, and they had this connection and agreement with each other. We don't want, any accord with the current government. So the day that we are getting rid of this government, we will have the friendship and agreement with each other. So, and Iran and Israel will be flourish much more together and hopefully bring more prosperity for the whole region, not just only for the Iranian and Israelis.
From your mouth to God's ears. I think it's a hope we all hold. Well, Elham, thank you so much for sharing your time and your story with us, and just telling us about your incredible history and personal background. It's been a real honor to have you with us, and thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate what you and your friends are doing in Jemena.
Thank you so much.